Well, welcome. We're kicking off February, the love month, discussing the five love languages. My Living with Favor show is really about, it's an acronym and it's about faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. I'm Lisa Mosbey, your host, and here with me today is Paula Johnson. Paula is an integrative nutrition health coach at Craving Joy, and I wanted to include her in this. We do our Thursday Facebook Lives together. We do a lot of work together in the areas of health and wellness and herbs and essential oils and food and nutrition and supplements and all of these things for well-being. And when I thought about love, I thought, how does love affect our well-being? So I'm looking forward to a conversation with you about love and how it affects our well-being. And then we're going to pop into the book, The Five Love Languages, by Gary Chapman. So we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into that. But thank you so much for being with me and talking about this in the month of February.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Emotions are that additional piece that impact our health, they impact our mind, they impact our body, they impact our day in so many different ways. And love being such a powerful frequency of an emotion, this is a great one to dive into for February.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sharing with Paula before we popped on that I do my little Bible study, and at some point she and I were listening to Father Mike. I don't know if y'all know who he is, but he did a year in the Bible. So every day you could hop on and he would read different pieces of the Bible and give his commentary. But one of the things that he talked about, and I have my notes right here, he talked about the four types of love. And there's so they reference it in the Bible a lot, and we see God as love, and then there's these four types of love. So I'm going to start with that, kind of the definition. And philia is the first one. That's Philia, philia. And that's brotherly or self-love, the love that we have for our friends. Eros is romantic, passionate, physical love. Storge, and that's Storge, but it's pronounced Storge. That's that family love that we experience with our loved ones. And then the last one is agape love. And agape is God's divine love, that unconditional love that sometimes we can achieve it, sometimes we can't, but we know that we've experienced and felt God's divine unconditional love of us, especially those of us who have chosen Jesus Christ as our Savior and follow that path and know that we've been saved and that that love is there for us. We can tap into that. So that's kind of the framework that I'm working from. We also know that most people think of love as physical love. Like how would you define love, Paula? When you think of the word love, do you take into account these four areas, or is it something different for you?
Yeah, I think it has a different definition for everybody.
Yeah.
Initially, people think of love and Valentine's Day as the romantic love. And so people either love Valentine's Day or they cringe because they're like, well, I don't have somebody right now. So, well, they kind of like poo-poo the holiday. And really about celebrating love is with all people in your life. This book that we're going to talk about covers love, but think about it as in your relationship with your spouse, of course, or your significant other. But also think about this in respect with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your coworkers. Um, how we communicate is a sign of love, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but um, it's so valuable to look at this in a different light, look at love in a different light, that this is really February is a month to celebrate, have more awareness of love, but all kinds of love. And I really appreciate you bringing up all the types of love referenced in the Bible. Um, the only one I could recall off of Father Mike's chats was the agape love because he talked about that quite a bit. Um, but yeah, I should memorize those others just for funsies too.
Yeah. Yeah. The other piece, we think of love for others, but what about love for self? You don't have to have a
Mhm.
date on Valentine's Day. Some of my best Valentine's days the last 6 years were by myself and, having a bubble bath or doing those things that make me feel appreciated and, love for myself and all that I do and love for myself for those that I serve and how I show up in the world. When we feel good about ourselves, can we really have agape love for ourselves? Can we love ourselves unconditionally? I am challenged by that. I can honestly say that. I still have judgment and negative self-talk and criticism that happen in my head about, the way that things are going and the things that I did wrong. And that can cause me to waver in that love for myself. Like I'm demanding of myself and what I want. So love, it's a tricky emotion, but yet an exciting one to explore. The five love languages, Paul and I have both read this book. We know our love languages. We've done the test. We've been around this material for a long time. And I was digging online and I found something that said the five love languages in 3 sentences. They defined this book in 3 sentences. So I want to kick it off right there. Number one, people speak different love languages. We all come about this from a different perspective. What do you think of that, Paula?
Absolutely. And I think different times of your life, you come at it in a different perspective too. Difficult days, easy days, the beginning of a struggle at the end of a triumph, like you have different levels and reflections on what that looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we all have our own love language. If you haven't taken the test, you might want to just for curiosity and see what shows up. I have taken the test multiple times, and my number one love language has pretty much been consistent. That one has not changed on any of the tests that I've done because I've kept a few of them in the back of the book here. Just have some notes on it so I can look back and reflect. But the other ones have been a little bit more fluid, and we'll get into what those love languages are in a minute here. Number two, after many years of marriage counseling, Chapman's conclusion is that there are 5 emotional love languages, 5 ways that people seek, understand emotional love, 5 ways that we seek and understand emotional love. What has your experience been around that? Now that you know what your love language is and like, you can probably identify some people's love languages when you interact with them just by how they communicate. Uh, how does that maybe affect your communication when you're communicating with people now that you're in on the secret?
Definitely. Yes, I've taken the quiz before too, and I have a couple of my copies here as well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I do it, I think about doing it every Valentine's Day. So I did it the past 2 Valentine's days, and mine was exactly the same each
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to look at and see. It's also really amazing to see how what's working in a relationship is going well. And when things kind of like, this is kind of awkward, like things aren't going so great. What am I missing to go back to the love languages and say, oh, yeah, I'm giving in the way I want to give, not the way that person wants to receive love. Or I can give in a way that's easy for me in this category, but it's harder for me in this category, and that's what that person really needs. Or you can witness others that really want to like do acts of service and help other people so much, but the recipient doesn't see it or acknowledge it, or it doesn't have the same meaning. And that giver is like, ugh, I'm so frustrated. And it's that missing link of understanding. Yeah, that's not their love language. No matter how you want to give your love, it doesn't land as much. It's just like using the right language. Should I
Mhm.
speak English or should I speak Spanish?
How well is it going to connect? Yeah. If they don't
If
speak
I
that
know both,
language,
I know one better than the other. So if I want to really communicate better, I should use the one that makes the most sense for the people involved. So
yeah.
yeah, it is like getting let in on a secret, but it's easy to forget what you know until it comes back to the surface again. So I love bringing this out again every February because it helps me put this front of mind and say, oh yeah, my husband really needs this. I really need this, but have I told him that
Yeah.
lately? Or have I demonstrated that lately? So yeah, let's dive into
Yeah.
these
When we get into
five
friction,
love languages.
yeah, when we get into friction, we kind of need to go back with it. The third sentence, it said that we can sum a book up in 3 ways. 1, 2, and 3. Third one is Chapman believes that once you've identified and learned to speak your spouse's primary love language, you will have discovered the key to a long-lasting, loving relationship. So we're kind of primarily focusing on that significant other, that love language, that couple's love language today. But all of this applies, whether it's to your kids, your family, your spouse, your parents, co-workers. We can love. I have clients that we say I love you, and I have people who have worked for me that express love that way. So it's kind of how I lead. So I bring love into everything that I do. So there's 5 love languages. I'm going to introduce the first one, number 1, words of affirmation. I only do that because that is my number 1 words of affirmation. That's to verbally be acknowledged, for people to speak to you, to give you confirmation. I need to hear it. I'm an audiophile. I love talking on the phone more than I love doing Zoom calls, because for me, when I'm talking on the phone, I can close my eyes and everything is happening right here. I can hear the person. I can feel their intensity. I can feel their emotion through hearing. For me, when my eyes get involved, it's a distraction for me, and I feel like I miss things, like I don't hear it as well. So kind of how we show up in the world too, like what our skill set is, words of affirmation, hearing people speak and affirm, or maybe not affirm, maybe express disappointment or something. For me, it's about that hearing and the words involved with it. So words of affirmation is my number 1 love language. Yes.
It's mine too.
Really? Oh my gosh. So, excuse
It
me,
is.
so many women have that as their
Mhm.
first one, and less men have it as their first one. So right off the bat, we have this kind of, oh my gosh, how are we going to connect? We have this like disconnection. Yeah. So how does it show up for you? How do you experience words of affirmation as your love language?
Um, I think it's always that's how I feel loved. So when I hear words of affirmation, I just feel extra special. I feel loved. I feel noticed. I feel appreciated. Um, when I don't feel those, I kind of feel missed or left out,
Yeah.
or like I did something amazing for my partner and they didn't even notice
Yeah.
because I didn't hear those words of affirmation. So yeah, that can have a big um emotion roller coaster, right? You either feel really good because you're getting those words of affirmation, or you're lacking them and you're just kind of like going along day by day. And those words just lift you back up again too. So it's fascinating to see. Had I not read this book, I would have had no idea that that was a critical piece of me having that loving feeling grow and be appreciated that way. So yeah, it
Woo!
is like the secret message behind all these are these 5 love languages of understanding them for sure.
Yeah. Number 2 is quality time, enjoying someone's companionship. And I think this is a struggle for a lot of folks right now. I see kids, sitting at the table at dinner and the phone is there. It's like, okay, no phones at the table because we don't get quality time. I want to check in. I can't express my love language to you. I can't love on you. I can't edify you. I can't lift you up with my words if you're buried in your phone. So whether it's your kids or your spouse or employees or people that you work with, how do we give them quality time? Quality time for me involves a little bit of eye contact, space, like being present with each other. Many of us live online. I know I do, and I miss that face-to-face time where you're within that inner circle where you could almost reach out and hug somebody. I think that what is that inner circle is like 3 feet where people can, when they come into that inner circle, your energy starts to meld and blend together, and it's just a different feeling than when you're online or over the telephone having conversations. How do you get quality time with people? Chime
Yeah,
in.
and quality time is not just side by side or watching a show together, doing stuff together, doing chores together. That's not quality time. That's just time. That's quantity time. Quality time really is that engagement. And there's so many great tools to re-spark conversation so that that time together can be more um, have more depth, have more connection. So The author of the book, Gary Chapman, also makes some conversation cards that are available on Amazon. There's tons of quizzes and other inspirations of conversation starters with your spouse that it's a great thing to Google, search, download, and just use it all month long. Pull one out each day or have something that really gets your mind thinking differently than day-to-day activities. It's funny when random conversations or random topics come into your day and you and your significant other can discuss them. It adds a new little spark. It adds a new little layer of, oh yeah, I remember when that I used to care about that. Now I don't so much. Or yeah, now I really care about that, but I used to not like that years ago, whatever the topic might be. It's just fun to meld your opinions together, share that conversation, or share the memories of that specific topic together. That builds quality time, that builds connection so deeply when we can do that intentionally versus side by side watching a show. Unless we're really going to discuss the whole show afterwards or pause and have some interaction, it's not the same thing to create that quality time, that enjoyment of each other, of listening and hearing what really matters to that other person or what their memories really are on those topics. It's
I
so
love
fun.
reading books together, where you take turns reading and then you get to discuss it because it creates engagement.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
even if you've been with somebody for 20, 25, 30 years, you don't necessarily know everything. And we're both out experiencing our lives. And so our opinions, our belief systems, what we know to be true in the world changes periodically. We all grow from, we're not the same when we were 20 as we are when we're 30 or 40 or 50. So being able to dive into certain kinds of books, I think is fascinating to open up the door to have a conversation. And to me, that fosters quality time. We're in conversation. It feeds my love language. And if your significant other needs quality time, or we'll share the next one, I'm going to go personal touch. So many times we need to hold hands, or we need that when sometimes people think personal touch is more of an intimacy thing, but personal touch can be just holding hands when you're walking or when you're sitting next to each other. Your legs might be touching if you're in church, or just there's that physical proximity to somebody, and physical touch for a lot of men is really important. It's usually, in the top one or two for many, many men that I've done this quiz with. So as important as the words are for women, the physical touch is for men. And I'm not generalizing. I'm not saying that this is true across the board. Just my experience in working with this material with the folks that I've worked with, those are some of the things that I've noticed, that those are one and two for many, many folks. Women, words of affirmation; men, physical touch seem to be in the top one or two for them. So
Mm-hmm.
physical touch, to be in proximity. One of the things that I loved when I was married, my husband would always, he'd stand behind me, or if I was sitting in a chair, he would brush my hair back off of my shoulder or put his hand on my shoulder. Or whenever we walked, I always held his arm, like I put my arm through his arm, and we always walked arm in arm. Not so much hand holding. He had some issues, rheumatoid arthritis stuff going on, but I always held his arm. And so there was just this grounding that happened in that physical touch. It was a way for us to stay connected. We didn't have to use words, but there's that just that feeling. So how does physical touch show up for you and Kevin?
It's interesting, not just for us, but for other couples too. There's often an imbalance, right? One person needs a lot more physical touch than the other is willing or interested in giving. Like that's not enjoyable for them, or that's exhausting for them, or that's a chore for them, versus the other really needs that physical touch. And recognize that if that's your top love language, that doesn't mean that love only can come from your spouse, your significant other. You may need a lot more physical touch than your partner is able to give, but find ways to have that be soothing. Hugs from other friends. Physical touch can also be massage, therapeutic massage also gives you that physical touch, but it doesn't have to be romantic touch. Those can be two different needs, right, in a relationship. But how you're being filled, how you're filling your bucket of that, if that's your top category of physical touch, can be done in multiple ways. Same thing with these conversations, this quality time category or the words of affirmation. None of, each of these doesn't have to come exclusively from your spouse. You can pull these from many different areas to fill your love bucket.
Yep, that's what he
When
calls it,
your
the love
love
bucket.
bucket, when your love bucket is full, when your heart is full, you're able to give more to other people.
Yeah,
So finding ways to fill it so that you can constantly give out to others in ways that fit their love language needs too. So yeah, it can be a balance to figure out, okay, this is my love language, but that's not how my partner gives, or that's his love language, but that's not how I give. Where do we find that match? And what fits in within our whole community of people that we love?
yeah.
Where does that fulfill us? And where can we find that balance in there as well?
I get a lot of my physical touch from my great nieces and nephews, and they have 10 kids in their family, had 12 kids in their family. They have a couple of angel babies, but they have 10 kids in their family. And everyone, when they sit on the couch, a couch only holds so many people. When you have 10 kids, they are touching each other. I think all of their love languages have to be physical touch. When you are in their presence, they are touching you. They're sitting on your lap. They're holding you. They always hug hello, hug goodbye. It's like they fill me up with that physical touch
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
I feel so loved by them every time I see them. Their face lights up and they come running across the room, and it's like, Auntie Lisa, and you get that big hug and hugs and
Yeah.
kisses. And yeah, I joke and say I'd give uncomfortably long hugs, but it's because of them, because they've taught me to give uncomfortably long hugs. So now I have to be more cautious with adults. Wait a minute, okay, that might be too long of a hug. Because they're just love bugs. They're a bunch of love bugs. And I think their whole family, because they're a big family and you live in smaller space. They're a same size house for a smaller family. You're still going to be in close knit quarters, and everybody shares a room. So you're used to having people around all the time. So there's that physical touch that's really prevalent for that family. I can see that with them. Number
Mm-hmm.
4, acts of service. We'll go with acts of service. To have your partner or people in your life do things for you, and how you feel when someone does something for you. Acts of service is that category.
Yeah, this is the way I give love. Like I'm always doing stuff for other people, or I'm um helping them in so many different ways, but it's not how they necessarily want to receive it or recognize it, right? Um, you know, the grandma or the mom that always wants to cook a meal for someone, or somebody that always the guy that always wants to come over and help repair something or fix something, or those acts of service that are given are also love languages spoken, but how it's received can be different too. Like, are you open? Do you recognize it
Yeah.
as receiving? Like, that's the first step of seeing, oh my gosh, this neighbor or this friend is sharing their love language by going out of their way to do this activity for me. Am I recognizing that as they're expressing their love? It's fascinating to see once you can dive deeper into this book, or this, especially this chapter as well.
Yeah, I find that it's really easy for me to take acts of service for granted and not realize the underlying message there, that this person is serving me because they love me. They do this for me because they love me. And I need to acknowledge that. So when we're not the same, acts of service is number 4 of 5 for me. And then we'll get into the last one I'll just share is gifts. It's what is it called? It's receiving gifts, to be given as tokens of love. So gifts. Number 5, a lot of women, gifts is really high up. They want to receive gifts of perfume, jewelry, chocolate, flowers, whatever that might be for you, receiving gifts. And I'm not the world's greatest gift giver. It's number 5 for me. In fact, I'm so bad at it that my nieces and nephews have called me on it. Auntie Lisa, how come you don't give us birthday presents? But there's so many of them, and they have, grandparents and parents and mom and dad, and there's just so many people in all of their lives. They get so many things. And it was like, I kind of get lost in the shuffle, and gifts are not important for me. But when they called me on it, one of the kids called me on it, it was like, because when I want to spend time with you, coming to my love language, it's not about giving you the gifts. That comes from mom and dad and everybody else. And all of those guys bring you the gifts, and Santa brings you the gifts. For me, I want to have time with you. I want to spend time with you. I want to know what you're doing in school, and I want to know what your world is like, and I want to go play on the swings together and, do these kinds of things. So I find myself even just explaining it to them that I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was important to you, and that is how, you receive love, how you experience love. And then I let them know how I receive or how I give love, wanting to hear from them and learning about what they're doing great in the world. So those two for me are challenging. The acts of service I often take for granted, and people do like to share gifts. And so, I've totally dropped the ball more than one time on the gift piece of it. So when we're not strong in an area, what do we do about that, Paula?
We really need to recognize the recipient.
Yeah.
You can usually identify someone that is that big gift giver, especially at the holidays. They are just watching everyone open the gift that they gave them because they've thought so much about it and they've put so much time and effort into that gift. To see that person enjoy that gift is what lights them up, right? Other people at Christmas, your Christmas is a chore. I have to find a gift for somebody. I have to do, it's the have to cross it off the list kind of thing versus those that really are gifts of love.
That's my sister.
That's,
She does gifts all year round. It's just, yep,
yeah,
she is
yeah.
the world's best gift giver. Yeah.
So it's easy to see, when they are giving like that, they also probably would like to receive in that
Yes.
same way. And that's hard for someone that's not used to that, or that's a little bit new or outside of their comfort zone to figure that out. But that's where we grow. That's where we try new things, we stretch, and we really try to pay attention to what's happening. Most of the time, what they're giving are also things that they love
Yeah.
and would love to receive themselves as well. So that's always kind of a little insider tip to watch. Are they giving something that they already are loving at home, or are they giving something that they wish they had at home? That
Yeah.
might be your clue as to, oh, yeah, I know the next great gift I'm going to give them
Yeah.
instead.
And I almost
But
have to keep notes in my phone. I have a note file, and when I think of something, I
yeah,
have to write it down because I won't remember, and it'll escape me and it'll be gone. So yeah,
yeah.
it's very much a conscious effort in that area for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and there are so many times where our love language are not going to match. My love language is those words of affirmation. That's what I want to receive, but yet I give in acts of service.
Mm.
Saying words of affirmation to others is a little awkward for me.
Ah,
It's a little harder for me to express that verbally to someone else, even though I know how much it means to me to receive it. I'm more comfortable giving in those acts of service. I can do that, and I can do that easily, and that feels right. So, um, one is just awareness.
yeah.
Look at yourself, take that quiz at the back of the book, or go online to the website and take the quiz and see where you're at, and then dive into those categories to see, oh, yeah, recognize, what do I do? Look at the people that are in your life majority of the time and say, how am I expressing love with them? How am I expressing love to my neighbor, to my son, to my parents? How am I sharing this? And then look at, how are they expressing love to me? How do I wish they were expressing love to me? Have I ever mentioned what my love language is, or would this be a great topic to bring up? Hey, have you ever heard of this? Give them the three bullet points that Lisa talked about earlier. Open the conversation for talking about it this month, but just keep that awareness going. And as you notice it, speak it out loud. Oh, I see your love language is shining today.
Yeah.
I can see your acts of service, your words of affirmation, your gifts, any of these things are so helpful to recognize, but then also decide, how can I intentionally show love today? We get so busy in the day to day. Like, what am I doing to help somebody feel loved or feel appreciated or connecting with them and having that quality time?
Yeah.
That's where the power of the book, like you said, the secret of the book
Yes.
comes into play, into real life. And it is so powerful when you put it into action, not just think of the theory of it, but have it impact your day every day,
Yeah.
not just Valentine's Day.
Yeah. 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 I'm glad that we have Valentine's Day so we can bring this up and dive deeper into it. It's interesting that you said that because you like to receive the words of affirmation and I like to give the words of affirmation,
Mm.
but I get uncomfortable receiving them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's still words of affirmation still shows up at the top of my tests, when we do the test. So I'm not exactly clear on what the significance of that is, but I love to edify people. I love to see the greatness in them and express to them, how in awe I am of their skills and their abilities and who they are and how they show up in the world. So I love that, the speaking of the affirmations. But when people offer that back to me, it's uncomfortable for me. You said it's uncomfortable for you when you speak it, but when I hear it, I don't know if it's a self-worth thing or what. Maybe this is an area I
Yeah.
need to dive a little bit deeper into. But for me, the thing that actually feels even better is quality time. Reading a book together or I do a couple of different Bible study groups. I do a couple of book study groups. It's those conversations. I like to get into conversations about deeper topics and having that time together to dig deeper and to have those conversations and have those discussions. So that's how I feel love because somebody, oh wow, they took the time to spend with me and have these great conversations. So those two are kind of tied together is kind of an awareness that I've had about my own behavior and how I feel and give love.
Yeah. Receiving gifts is often hard for people too,
Yeah.
especially if they are not a family that gets many gifts.
Mhm.
When you get a gift from a random person, it's like, oh, you know, I don't deserve this. Or why are you giving this to me? Do you have another agenda? Versus them just really saying, I love you, I appreciate you, and I want to share this with you. So being aware of all sides of that can be so powerful, but it also can help us so that we are responding appropriately when we are receiving those words of affirmation or those gifts or those acts of service to help the other person giving that feel
They feel
seen and heard, like, oh, you did do something amazing for me.
yeah.
It might not be my top love language, but I recognize you. I see that you are giving love in whatever form it is that you feel comfortable giving
Yeah.
at this state. So yeah, it is opening another secret language so that we can dive deeper.
Yeah, I think it's important too that we don't criticize the people in our lives, whether it's our kids or our even our employer or especially our significant other, that we don't criticize them. And if we catch ourselves being critical, take a look in the mirror and saying, how am I feeling a need here from this person? Like if they are not able to express those words, when I come out and I get dressed up and I've spent time and I'm, like ready for my date, and it's like, and you didn't say, oh my gosh, you look amazing or you look beautiful or wow, I love that we're gonna, go do this together, and you're so stunning tonight, or whatever those words are. When you don't hear them, it can be critical, like, oh, I put down all that out of effort and he didn't even notice, or I went to all the trouble to give him the gift and he didn't even notice. Like, I really put a lot of thought into it. I took my lunch break and I went and found that perfect birthday gift, and it didn't mean as much to me. So when we're feeling ourselves being critical, or experiencing those feelings of being critical about how somebody else responded, I think it's important that we verbalize it, that we share and let them know that this is your love language and is important to you. Any suggestions on how we can do that? How we can um, express criticism without being critical, without criticizing, when we're experiencing the feelings, not that we're expressing criticism, but expressing our feelings when we have a need that needs to be fulfilled, because it's going to actually bring us closer together, but we have to be able to get the words out sometimes, and that's difficult.
Yeah, and it's finding a way to make it more of a observation
Mhm.
rather than a you hurt me or you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Helping that to share, I see that when I do this big gift for you or this big act of service, there isn't much response, and find out, like, how is this? I don't know. What's the great words to say, Lisa? But I think it opens the door for that quality conversation to really explore, how you can observe this without using the word you, but observe, this is what I saw, this is what I felt.
Yeah. I'll take it into that intimacy relationship. In the book, Gary talks about a common mistake that many men make is assuming that physical touch is their primary love language because of their desire for sexual intimacy so intensely. But most sexual problems in the marriage have little to do with physical technique and everything to do with meeting the emotional needs. So if the woman's emotional needs are met, then there can be more intimacy. So it's this, I don't know if it's a triangle, or it's this ability to communicate what it is that our needs are, our desires are, and not just having that knee-jerk reaction of, no, I don't want to have sex tonight, or no, I don't want to have intimacy tonight. How do you express that? Taking me out to dinner, using some words of affirmation, that's going to draw me in and draw me closer to you, where I want to have that physical touch, where I want to be in that close proximity. So there's this whole dance of the language that's happening in the background, and when we can bring it to our conscious mind to be aware, and really not focusing so much on what the other person is experiencing, but what we are experiencing, and saying, here is my preference. Here's what I'm feeling at the moment, rather than using you, like you did something wrong. No, there is no wrong. We don't all have the answers. It's only wrong when we don't know what we're doing. And most of the time, we don't know what we're doing. That's why we're bringing this conversation up. That's why we're bringing the book forth again, is that so, we all get to learn this together, and we're more equipped to have the tools to create these conversations and relieve the stress and pressure on our relationship. So, how do we bring these things up? How do we have those conversations and communicate? Um, I think it starts first with us. How do we feel about
Mhm,
ourselves? And
mhm.
how do we find a way to express our needs, rather than holding in it and stuffing it and not expressing it, feeling resentful um, and critical?
Yeah, I think this book brings great awareness, and it also then gives us the opportunity to discuss it and help each other move forward. This would be a great one to read together.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, I think maybe,
Thanks, Lisa.
yeah, for sure. But one last section, Gary talks about 3 ways to discover your own primary love language. I'm going to hit these 3 high points and then we'll wrap this up. Number 1, ask yourself, how your person most often expresses love to you and or others. Do they write a note, give a small hug? Do they verbalize compliments? Try to start to notice the people in your lives, whether it's your children or your family, your parents, your significant other. Notice what they're doing. It may help you give you insight as you're reading this book or as you're doing the test yourself. Number two, what have you most often requested from your spouse? What have you most often requested from your spouse? That's going to give you insight into you and how you want to experience or feel loved. And number three, what does your person complain most often about? If somebody else is critical or they're complaining about something, we don't need to take it personally. We need to listen because communication is happening. And so we didn't know what we didn't know when they started to express that. It's really not a complaint. We may have interpreted it that way, but sometimes it may not be a complaint. So listening, what is it that they are desiring? What is it that they're asking for? And it may come out in the form of a complaint. Um, those are kind of the three ways that he said that we can actually get started to discover our love languages. Do you have any final thoughts on this book or?
Oh, we covered it. We really covered so many good things. I encourage everyone, just dive in, grab this book, the audiobook, grab the Cliff Notes, whatever you need, and just get started.
Yeah. And remember, not two people, almost never do two people fall in love on the same exact day. It's a dance. It's a conversation. It's quality time together. All of these things are part of the love experience, whether it's with your significant other or people that are in your life. Embrace the idea of it. Go out and explore and play and have fun. And then take a look and notice, how is this affecting your well-being? Has it lifted your spirits? Do you feel differently because love is on your mind? Love is conscious. Take one of Paula's suggestions about how do we start these conversations in the month of February? What game can we play? What can we initiate? I don't mean game in a negative sense. I mean, fun. How do we gamify this? How do we initiate playful conversations around love in the month of February? All right. I know on our Facebook Live, we're going to be talking about some aphrodisiacs. We're going to get into the herbs, the oils, the foods, the nutrition aphrodisiacs, because those can, stimulate love after Valentine's Day. So if y'all want to check that out, we'll be talking about that soon on one of these shows. So feel free to reach out. I'll put some links in the notes for this show, as well as in our plant power half-hour conversation that we do as well. So lots of ways for you to plug into love this month. Thank you so much for tuning in. Paula, thank you for joining me and having this great conversation. I love it.
Absolutely. See you again soon.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.